1:33. So, and this is the Park Recreation and Refuse Committee meeting. Thank you everyone for being here. And we have a big agenda to go through. So let's go ahead and let's do the roll call first, please. Not on the agenda, but let's go to roll call, please.
Just do the roll call for everybody here.
Just the committee members.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it's been a while since I've had to do this. Director
Pardonish?
Donish, I wanted to call you by your first name.
Okay. No problem.
Director Naveed, is that okay?
Naveed, that's
That'll
fine.
work, just say, hey, you for me.
Donish.
Here.
And Director-
Here,
Thank you.
All right. Our first item is the.
excuse me a second, is there any way that we could put everything that Ron, right?
Yep.
Oh,
Is
okay.
on the agenda, and get him out of here, or,
Well,
Don't worry about me.
okay, he's got a bunch of stuff on here, and I was just,
No, go do your normal agenda. I'm perfectly fine.
okay,
Thank you for offering that though.
forget though.
Very good. Okay, we're good. Thank you. All right. First item, the Everest Park entrance updated plans and cost.
Okay, so I wanted to, there's a number of, it's included in the attachment, a few items related to Everest Park, and I want to walk you through them. Just by way of reminder, we were talking about this topic last, I believe, the first of early May. And that was after we learned that the county had rejected our initial plans because the proposed walkway, the new walkway, that doesn't exist today, from the street, Gibson Street, down into the parking lot level of the park, was not ADA accessible, and so if you recall, our original thoughts were that we only had to provide accessibility from the parking lot, that's where we had ADA accessible parking stalls into the park. Well, the county said, no, it's got to be from the public right of way. So we spent time about 3 months ago now looking at alternatives. The engineer for MIG participated in the meeting, showed you a simulation of what the proposed walkway would be. You expressed some concerns about the narrowness of that walkway, and ultimately widened it to 5 feet of space between the handrails, the guardrails. Yeah, so the walkway design didn't change, but it was wider. At that time, we talked about the implications to the parking lot and how the driveway was already kind of narrow, and widening that walkway would encroach about 2 feet into the parking lot. And the direction at the time was then let's design a wider or widen the drive lanes into the parking lot so that we didn't lose any of that space. So in your packet here, we've included this little schematic that we got from MIG. And this now includes both the widened walkway, and on the north side of the driveway, or the walkway side, and also widens the drive aisle. It's MIG is suggesting not doing it as an alternate, but just including it as widened in the base bid, because they're concerned that the cost could go up if it's a separately bid item.
Okay.
And if the committee felt, and it seemed like the last bid that you felt that was probably fairly essential, and I know I talked to at least one of you afterwards who expressed some concerns. And so they've designed this to be included in the base bid. So this design work is actually now complete. This is the 5 foot wide sidewalk, 5 feet between the rails. You may recall that this image doesn't give you all the information, obviously, because this sidewalk, particularly at this bend, is going to be quite elevated off the roadway, about 2.5 feet. You might remember that from before. So that remains the same. Anyhow, so that's the situation with the sidewalk. The roadway, rather than widening the actual entry, which is up on Gibson, they chose to widen it after you got into the park. So the whole thing kind of sort of jogs over a little bit. I think it'll accomplish what we're looking for, which is more room next to the guardrail. If you remember, our biggest concern was once this handrail was up, it kind of made the drive aisle actually feel even narrower than it was. So they've jogged this over. Our big concern initially was this drain system.
Yeah.
That you can see in the about what, maybe 40% of the way down the driveway. It's the curb now is behind that structure, and this new drain pipe goes in. That's what's illustrated on this in this drawing here.
So are we moving the drain? Then, the structure?
I don't know. I don't know if the design's that level of detail just yet, but the curb is behind the existing, where the existing structure is today.
Where's that again?
On the drawing, do you see where the looks like a little, this little shaded area that's separate from the road is shown? I should have put this up on the screen today. See right here, at the very top of that, just to the right of it, you see a round image that's inside the hashed mark. That's the drain structure.
Okay,
You see it there, Wayne?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
it's super tiny up here. It's, the drain structure is.
So it's ready.
Okay,
That's the existing drainage inlet that's behind the curb. The curb would now be behind that. So we gain back the space that we lost in the roadway, in the driveway.
Do we know how wide the road is now?
It's at least as wide as it is today.
Okay,
That was our goal, was not to
Okay.
lose any
okay,
of the existing width.
I think,
You can kind of see when you look up here now, the sidewalk, if you look where it says stop, like the stop bar is shown. That's all existing roadway. The sidewalk or the pedestrian walkway encroaches into the existing roadway. That's what's shown when you see how it kind of overhangs the top of the stop mark.
okay, well, I'm
So-
yeah, I'm glad.
So I think this meets your goal of doing that. Now, one thing that we ran into with,
I'm sorry, just real quick. So what was the reasoning with not moving the, this upper part where it comes in? What was the reason?
I don't know. We were just presented this.
Yeah.
And we found it acceptable. So we didn't debate further, whether or not it needed to be widened.
my guess is cost.
Well, I mean, it's just a small section, so. I don't
Well,
know.
so what ends up happening is this upper part of the walkway up here is really asphalt, so cars can share that space. There's no elevation change. So this, this is flush with the road.
Yeah.
So this area here isn't gonna be elevated by a curb.
Yeah.
So the cars really can come out and use that existing space that we have now. Cause it's because it's flat enough that it doesn't need to have those railings and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why it's shown as narrower.
Mhm.
Originally, we had said, let's just keep it narrow, 3 feet. People who have something really big will still use the road, but then once this got all the handrails and everything else, that didn't work.
And then the gate's gonna be right up there, right?
It'll be,
Where it's at
sort of
now.
where the stop sign is, yeah.
Or where the stop sign,
Oh,
right down here.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct, yes.
It's not at the beginning. Huh?
No,
Because
No,
I
you
remember
cannot
thinking-
have it at the beginning because the initial entrance is also used as an entrance for the mini storage.
Yeah.
When you're driving into the park, there's a mini storage to the left,
Okay,
and so they have to have
So
access to that.
okay,
yeah, so our gate, the location of the gate really doesn't change. It stays about right here.
okay.
But this is,
It's just that because the way the sidewalk on the main road is, the way it curves like that, it just. I was just thinking if right at the beginning, if it was just wider there as well, it would be, but I guess
That
it
part
is
is,
what it is.
that part is wide.
It's
It
wide.
fits
So it is what it
2 or
is.
3 cars,
Okay.
no problem. It's that as we go into the park, it starts to.
Okay, all right,
So,
okay, that's fine. Good, well.
so what we ran into though, when we were working with, so after our meeting, we regrouped with, after we met the last committee meeting, we regrouped with MIG. And they had presented us a change order request for their contract for $10,000 to do this change. And we went back and forth, so we're not sure why we're obligated to pay that. This was, we're not really changing the scope of our project. It's just that you had advised us originally that the sidewalk, the pedestrian path didn't need to be ADA accessible because we were meeting ADA requirements for the parking lot. So they said, well, let's go back and see if we can push on the county some more, because maybe we don't need to have this path. We have other priorities. This was one of them, but not necessarily the highest priority. That took a couple of months because the county is really difficult to get information from, especially their planning department to get information from. County came back and said, no, if you do any improvements in the park, you must provide ADA accessibility from the right of way, which I think was the assumption that we had since this spring. But MIG then we pushed on them a little bit and said, they said, well, we're already in it for $7,500 with the engineering firm. That's a subcontractor to MIG. It's not their own engineers. Actually, I can't remember what's the name of the. It's Vincent works for. Yeah, B something. Drawing a blank here. Anyways, it's a sub-consultant to MIG. So MIG came back and said, okay, we'll cut they were gonna charge $2,500 and then bill the engineering firm was billing $7,500 for this. Which at this point it's been done, but we haven't paid for it. So a couple months later, MIG came back and said, okay, we'll waive any overhead costs that we have because they didn't, neither party wants a dispute over this. Now, I don't think I'm recommending we move forward with a $7,500 change, just because I think it's going to cost us more than that to fight about it. It's disputable whether or not MIG should be responsible or not. We did approve the submission of the plans to the county. We okayed them based on their advice, but and so ultimately their interpretation of the ADA was more liberal than the county's interpretation, and the county's the one that's and the county says no. So this item, this $7,500 item is yet to be approved. If this committee agrees that we should pay it, we would put it on the consent calendar for our next board meeting to get authorization to amend the contract for the $7,500 to deal with this, basically the new ADA sidewalk and the widening of the driveway.
So it's not because we decided to widen the sidewalk, it was because
The whole thing, it was gonna trigger either way.
Yeah.
They're really saying it's because we're asking to redesign the portion of the project after they've achieved 95%. We okay the 95% drawings.
Okay. But that was because
The county and the ADA
Yeah.
requirements, we're gonna go anywhere. So, I think we can push harder, but I think if we end up in a dispute, it's gonna cost everybody a lot more than $7,500. And so, MIG has again waived their portion of what they were originally gonna charge.
Alright.
And this is a pass-through cost to their engineer.
And it's BKF. I looked it up.
Oh, good.
BKF, they're the civil engineers. They did candlestick. No big deal.
I'm fine with it.
you're fine with it. I'm fine with it.
Okay, good. So probably the next item, and maybe the one that you're more interested in is the cost estimate. So MIG has kind of has updated the cost estimates in late July for the project, which include as a part of the base bid, this work, the widening of the driveway.
Okay.
So this is a little bit cumbersome to look at. I'll try to explain it the best way that I know how. And that is the top of the project, the first essentially 2 pages, almost the full first 2 pages is the work at the entryway. So that's the new ADA pedestrian pathway, the widening of the parking lot driveway, the ramp, the new ADA ramp from the parking lot into the park, the path from the main entry at the playfield level. As you look at the park to the left behind the softball field #1, the first softball field, to the play structure and half the play equipment, the hillside play equipment is all included in this first portion of the first, let's say first page, 80% of the next page. So their estimate of that work at this point is about $822,000, which is within our budget.
Yeah, that's what
Okay,
I thought it was gonna be 1 point something.
well, we'll keep going.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so then they've designed, then they've designed with our help really, or we asked for three, what I'll call bid alternates. The first bid alternate is this extended perimeter. It says DG, but it's a concrete. I don't know what's here. Extended DG path. This path would then make it a full loop. It would go from the play structure, which is on the, about halfway down on the left side as you're looking from the parking lot. Where the hillside is, you know, right where the softball field number 2 starts, the kind of the backstop of that. It would continue to within the perimeter of the park, within the fence line, all the way around all the play fields and circle back to this existing snack bar. That would allow for a continuous loop. So that being the first item is estimated at this 238,000. But in addition to that, you would need to add these other contingencies, the mobilization, the design contingency, general condition contingency, bond estimate, and escalation. So that you add those together, you're at 9, 16, 18 and a half, 21 and a half, 22%. About 22% on top of that cost. So that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000. That's their estimate. The second bid alternate would be the remainder of the play structure. This would be the play equipment that's programmed in the flat area that is north of the hillside. So it's close to the hillside play area, but it's the remaining portion of it. That would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 200,000. So 165 plus that 22% or so. And then the third alternate is a drinking faucet, a bottle fiddle, and a concrete pad. Probably in the neighborhood of about 10,000. So these are the way this is structured right now. Is those would be bid. So the base bid would include the main work. Bid alternate 1 would be the remainder of the walking path. Bid alternate 2 would be the remainder of the play area, and 3 would be the drinking fountain. So if it goes out like that, then when the bids come back, you would award the bid based on the base bid, and then at that time determine whether or not you wanted to include any of these alternates. You don't have to do 1 and 2 to get 3. You can do just 3. You can just do 1 and 2. You can just do 1. So the idea is that you wouldn't be determining in advance which are higher priorities to be based on the bids themselves and how much money you have available.
I see. Okay, so we don't have to make that.
You don't have to make the decision now, but we do have to decide, do these bid alternate components make sense?
Well, I think doing the loop, what do you think? I mean, do you think that would be a top priority? We should definitely make sense in terms of going ahead on cost and everything.
You know, I think all 3 of these things are good priorities to have, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that we're realistically gonna get all 3 of them as added alternates, you know what I mean? I think the budget will probably help determine, you know, when the real numbers come through, right?
Okay,
Will determine what needs to happen. It would be amazing to loop fully that walking path to the back of the park. It would be pretty incredible to have that finalized play area there too. So it's nice to have this number too, because we have, you know, maybe the rec foundation doing some
yeah, that's what.
some work. I don't know that they're doing, you know, $200,000 worth, right? But there are some other funding sources that might help with sort of, you know, seeing this through.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, as far as the second half of the play area, I think that would be something that we could go out to the community and maybe get people, you know, sponsorships and get people excited about it and you know, do it over. And that's something that you could do over 4 or 5 years, you know, just every year add something a little bit more to it, correct? Or is it?
Yeah, no, I think
Get
there's
more-
ways to fine tune
I
it.
mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, there's one right here that I was just at the new drinking fountain. I could, you know, maybe talk to the Lions because they have a fountain, looks like a lion or something.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, and maybe that would be something that would be considered that they would wanna do, so some of it. So I mean, I could, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about like even the drinking fountain, maybe could be a district installed item down the road, would
Yeah.
need to be contracted for, depending on how it gets
Yeah.
done.
So,
But if you look at this thing in total, if you know, obviously we want all of it done, and remember when we did this work, I guess now 2 years ago, when we
Yeah,
first did the ultimate plans, these are only 4 of about a dozen improvements.
Yeah.
Right? These were 4. So these 4, if we were able to do it all, it'd be about, their estimate right now is about $1.3 million, 1.323. So, the concept right now is to finish the way we would proceed. If there isn't any new direction from the committee, is we would take the budget amendment to the board for the design work, to the completion of the design work. Then it would go back to the county for a plan review. And then sometime around the end of the year, it would be ready to be bid out. We've already provided MIG with a widened window for construction. We're really trying to do everything we can to keep our construction costs lower. And so we provided dates from the last weekend that we held softball, which I think is about early May, about May 10th or somewhere around there, through about end of August, middle of August. So there's about a 3-month window where we've said we can essentially close the park. We don't have any programmed uses, and do all the construction, so that way we can hopefully lower our construction costs, because the contractor can just close the gates and not have to worry about making items safe or removing any issues during the evening, or accommodating construction while there's public within the area.
Okay.
So that's the concept, that's the plan. So at the time the bids come back, we would be able to look and see what the actual bids are, the total amount of money that's available, including the grant funds. And then see how far you want to go. You're not really, you could, let's say there's something that was important to you and it was going to cost $20,000 more than we have available. You can do that. You just have to dive into other sorts of funds, or essentially borrow from the development impact fee account. The hardship there is it's not a very reliable, it's not predictable that money's going to come into it, because it's only paid when people have new development. But probably isn't worth spending a lot of time on that until you actually have numbers right in front of you, black and white, ready to go.
And I think hopefully the costs for construction are starting to either stabilize or come down a little bit.
Yeah, MIG thinks that they've stabilized, but we're not in this sort of massive runaway period like we were last year. But they admittedly didn't have a whole lot of projects that were very recently bid either. They were citing one that came in close to the engineer's estimate. So I think they feel more confident the numbers are solid and not going crazy anymore, but
They already went crazy.
they already went crazy.
Any?
No, I like this one. I like the plan, so.
Yeah, I like the plan too.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with the design now, and the price will just send it out.
We could do all 3 alternates. That's the thing, huh?
We'll just have to roll up our own sleeves and go out there and dig. I'll last about 5 minutes, but good. All right, is that enough?
Yeah,
Direction? We're good. All right. All right. The next item is vandalism, parked cars, and homeless at the parks.
We just wanted to provide like a little update to you, because we've seen, the Templeton parks are not immune from the challenges in our society, although but we have just less of those issues for a number of reasons, because we close them and they're not open after dark, and it's in Templeton, and particularly the case of the Evers Park, it's kind of hidden away. But over the past months, and really maybe increasing over the past couple of years, we've had more challenges that relate to just societal challenges, problems. And so I just wanted to sort of share those and make sure that you're up to speed. So for example, we've had more transients, more people at the park who are not doing typical park activities. They're not going for a walk, they're not playing with their dog, they're not playing catch with their kids. They're just sort of there. And that's actually not, parks are places for people to go relax, right? I mean, but these are, might be people who don't have somewhere else to go to relax. So we've seen that, although I don't think it's been a problem.
No, it's not been, a hugely negative situation necessarily so far, thankfully, right? But there's one person who parks his car at Evers all day, moves it according to the shade, and reads or whatever. And when the park closer comes in, he moves it out right outside the park, right? And parks it there for, I'm assuming overnight. And, but I opened this morning, I think, about 7:30, and when Nate was there, our new parks guy, he got there shortly after, the car was already there, right? So, he's there every open hour, basically.
How long has that been going?
I'd say probably 7-8 months or so by now. So, he's not jumping the fence. He's not causing issues. He's there during games, right? And practices. He's not, getting in the way of anything. He's not causing a scene. He's not, taking pictures of the kids. He's not, he doesn't appear to be looking for access to the kids. You know what I mean? He sometimes comes in and uses the restroom and just takes off, so he seems benign from all appearances, but, it's someone's there during the entire open hours of the park. I felt like it's something we should bring up. So,
Yeah, we just want to make it known to you that, we're not immune to these kinds of challenges. For example, we have hose bibs in the bathrooms for cleaning the restrooms. You hook the hose up, you turn a key on, and you wash down the floor. Well, those have started to be used for, someone's brought their own hose and started to use those for showering. So we put a lock on the thing, so you can't get water out of there anymore. But they'll find another way. We've had this problem at our well sites too, where we've had homeless come and try to get used to water for hygiene and stuff. So that does happen. We've had occasions where we've had more issues with cars being left in overnight. And we don't, right now, just so you know, when there's a car left overnight, they're locked in. The gates are closed. If we can't find the person with the car, they're essentially locked in. We've had, I don't know if that problem has sort of continued with the one car that was left in.
no, he's moved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it may be we may run to a point where we want to actually have the authority to tow for cars that are left overnight, if it becomes a real problem. Because again, these are, I don't want to say homeless, but I don't, yeah, they may be a transient population or something. And at some point, maybe the car won't start or needs work or whatever. And I get it. Let's say you go to the park and you're playing Frisbee with your kid and you leave the radio on too long and the car won't start and it's dusk and you just say, I'll deal with it tomorrow. And you just get a ride home and you come back tomorrow, fine, no problem. But if it becomes a repeated problem where all is basically being abandoned there, we don't want to see that happen. So
are there any ordinances as far as like at the county level, so that way we could look at those in terms of people sleeping in cars?
well, so basically the courts have ruled this is public property. It's going to be very difficult for us to, most of those no camping ordinances are unconstitutional. So it's going to be difficult. I would guess we're going to, over time, this will be a bigger challenge. Right now, we're dealing with it. We haven't arrested anybody or towed a car or things like that, but we want to evaluate what tools we might need, and we may come back and if there's something that we don't have the authority to do and we're able to do under the law, then we might bring that back to the board to ask for like a code change or something. But it's just really just alerting you to these challenges, because I think certainly a couple of decades ago or a decade ago, this was unimaginable really in Templeton, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this was, these problems didn't exist in Templeton, but they do now.
Don't
And
they
then
have that law though too that says you can't ask them to leave unless you've got a place for them to go.
right, that's what,
So that's the big kicker.
right, unless you have enough bed space, you really can't get rid of them off public property unless there's another place they can go.
Can you recommend Echo or anything like that? Or is that too far away?
It's really more like there has to be X number, there has to be enough beds for all the homeless within a certain region in order for that authority, like the county, to kick them out of a public place. That's, it's really why Caltrans and stuff, they can't really remove them from these locations any longer, because there isn't enough housing to go around in a global sense. There might be for one individual, but not for everybody. So it hasn't got to that case here, and I don't know that we, I think we're dealing with it. But we wanted to alert you that you may hear, hey, we saw a homeless person in your park. It's, we've had, so at Bethel Park, we've had repeated instances of someone probably jumping the fence for hygiene purposes, using a hose and that kind of thing before or after or before hours. But they haven't, other than sometimes the hose being left on or the hose being there removed, that hasn't led to any real vandalism. And we've had bouts of vandalism at the parks just randomly over time. I wouldn't even say that now is greater than any normal period. We've typically had we suspect more like teenagers breaking things in the bathrooms and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We haven't had a big rash of that. But from the public's perception, I think more of a homeless impact, even though it's still very small.
And they're still in vehicles, it's not, we're not finding tents, you know what I mean, tents
Well,
in the bushes or anything like that.
Not at those parks anyway.
Thankfully, yeah.
We have had an issue at the community garden at the skate park,
Yeah.
where it looks like people have definitely had cases where people are sleeping in there.
Wow.
So, again, not sure, not a homeless encampment, more like just an
I
overnight
think an
guest.
individual, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I think it's crucial to continue to make sure that we lock the parks at night. And then another thing is we just have to be vigilant and keep an eye in terms of safety for especially children working
Exactly.
there. That's my big concern, make sure that nothing nefarious going on, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so our programs at the parks, like, let's say soccer, because that's coming up now.
Boy, is it.
Everyone's gonna show up at the same time, right? There's not like an employee's gonna be there 3 hours early.
Right, no,
maybe,
no.
right?
If it is, it's gonna be me.
Yeah,
So
It's
I got workers comp.
there's a lot of folks come all at once, and I really don't think that this problem is gonna affect us for our soccer program. We haven't had, again, even the sort of the bathroom uses, things that we really don't want to see happen, like showering in the bathroom. We don't want to see, there's not a shower facility there. That hasn't happened when anyone's been around. But there's just evidence that it did occur, and we're trying to prevent that from.
So what time are you opening the park right now?
It varies. Typically, it's about 7:30 in the morning, depending, right? Sometimes because the utility crew open it up, typically it's on the weekends, it's whoever's on call. And it kind of depends if they come in and have to deal with a well situation. We usually do the well checks first, right? But it tends to be about 7:30, pretty consistent.
I guess one option would be taking a look at maybe adjusting those hours, maybe opening up a little bit later. Is that a possibility? And then closing earlier? Would that be?
So we can open later, yes. However, people have needs at the park. Like,
Yeah.
for example, we had a soccer camp there. We had to have people come open at
Right,
6 because they were coming in
exactly.
earlier.
Okay.
And people who use them, but
So there is usage.
especially the German park where it's used as a community, it's used like as a rest stop.
Like a neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot of contractors, landscapers,
Yeah.
they use it as the restroom, and yeah, we would definitely have some pushback if that didn't get open early.
So there is
There'd be
usage
people,
at.
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, people walking dogs, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So now the closing it earlier would be problematic only because again, at that point you have people in the park that you'd have to
Yeah.
escort out.
Physically, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you have to either wait for them. So what I think we found is it's easier to deal with it after dark because by then most people have left.
Your guy that parks here all day, he might just, soccer season starts, he might leave.
We'll see.
He's gonna be,
It might leave in the afternoon, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We got
he won't be
5,
able to follow the sun around, too many people will be parking in there.
yeah, we got 5 fields built out at Evers and I think 2 teams on 3 of those fields at all times after 3:30, so, it'll get busy. It kind of tilts me because he's taking up a parking spot, really.
Can we do like parking meters, well, I guess that's cost a lot of money, huh? But where you could get 2 hours free or something like Paso does, and then there'd be charged for it after that.
I think
Okay,
the
McScrew.
concern
But
with
he's
that
gonna
is,
just move, huh?
well, the concern with that would be the ability to enforce it,
Yeah.
right? Paso has, the meter maids, for lack of
Yeah.
a better term, right?
Yeah.
So they just
The
kind of run
cost,
around and, oh, you're expired, right? I'm writing you a ticket.
And then
So,
keep it in a move or the cost of it
yeah.
too.
So, yeah, I think right now it's not,
Yeah.
it's not affected us much, but we want it, you know, it's also just one or two people, but,
yeah.
you know, society is changing and, you know, I don't know, I'm sure you see way more transient population even just in town than you've ever seen before. I mean, it's not unusual to see somebody, you know, walking down the street that we don't know where they slept last night in Templeton anymore. That in just 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. So.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, well, thank you for being, you know, keeping an eye on it, appreciate it, and then, anytime, you know, let us know if anything changes. All right, next item is the Community Library Association book room.
Just wanted to update you on that. As you remember, or likely recall, the book room, the Temple Community Library has used the community room in the rec center as a book room afternoons for like 7 years now. Does that sound about right? 6, 7 years. Yeah.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It's been a while,
That goes by quicker.
Yeah,
It does, I just kind of,
So it's been quite a while, and they are planning on closing that's facility when they open up the new library. Now, that was originally scheduled to be opened by this spring, and so obviously had some delays, and they're still using the book room, but I was gonna have Melissa just kind of, you know, brings up to speed on where we're at and what we're gonna do once they're gone.
yeah, so they do have the new facility built. I don't know, I'm sure we've all seen it. It's, you know, little progresses here and there. It's pretty exciting. I think they have basically everything they need except for the switch from PG&E, which I heard from Melinda Reed the other day. I think it was on Tuesday. She said it finally shipped. So I don't know.
She didn't say from where though.
She didn't say from where, she didn't say delivery time. She did say that PG&E has for the installation of the switch, has a calendar about 6 to 8 weeks out, and they will not put them on the calendar until the switch is in-house, right? So as soon as it arrives, whenever that is, they can get on the calendar for the installation, which will be 6 to 8 weeks out. So we're still a few months away from the big move, right?
October probably.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, December is my.
The county got them too. They made them dig up all of the
Oh, really?
concrete because they didn't like the way,
Is that what they were doing out there?
they
Yeah,
didn't like the way it went into the street. The only thing the county has control of on that library is the street.
yeah, so they're gonna
So they
exercise
made-
that control, I'm sure.
And supposedly it was kind of like the archaeological dig, you know, some guy that works at the county came by to see what was going on, just curiosity. And said, you can't do that.
Oh, awesome.
Anyway, that's just our wonderful county at work.
So we're looking, it likely a ways out. And on top of that, once they have everything ready for the move in, they actually have to move out, right? And there's, you know, hundreds of books in there. So it'll take some time to get everything out, get the bookshelves out, you know, clean the walls, fill the holes, paint it over, all the stuff, right? So I really do think at this point, it's likely to be closer to after the first of the year-ish, maybe December, when we're able to sort of, in a sense, like claim the room back, right? Or at least not have them there anymore, because they'll be in their new amazing space.
I think the stuff will be out quickly because
You think it'll be
I mean,
faster?
I'm not involved anymore, but as I understand it, they've got meathead movers coming in
Really?
to do that.
Wow,
And I don't know what kind of deal they made with them or anything, but that's the last I heard. So if that's the case, that's the.
that could be a faster process, yeah.
Instead of letting me do it like. pickup
You and
truck.
your little red truck, yeah. Well, I mean, Bill's not
I'd
here.
have to borrow yours.
So, and then getting everything out. So the idea is once they're gone, starting to plan and develop sort of some community classes to help hold in there, right? Where over the summer, actually, we just had some painting, like kids' art classes, right? And like 20 kids showed up to do this thing, and it was amazing. And they paid us a little rent, but I think we can make more money. So having like a variety of community classes to kind of target the uses of the facility that we're not already capturing, but also the kids who don't do sports, right? Like we're pretty sports heavy. So it would be nice to do some, maybe like a dance class in there. I think Main Street Dance might have cornered the market, but some painting classes, some crafting stuff. And there's no shortage of local instructors that are ready to, help facilitate this, right? So I have a feeling we'll be able to fill it up. We'll still have during the, daytime hours, the preschool will still be there. I believe this year we might have some homework club or after school tutoring going on in some of the back rooms. And then maybe having, like I said, these sort of community classes, 2-3 week class sessions to have kids doing other things as well. So that's kind of the plan right now, is to guide it that direction. So
Can we do any adult programs at all?
absolutely, absolutely.
That would be nice.
Yeah, we can do more adult programs. We've been trying to sidebar, reinstate our senior club, but it's been difficult. So some of the people involved are, COVID was a big hit for
Yes.
folks. So working toward that end as soon as folks are ready to be feeling safe in that environment again. So, but doing, adult class sessions in there, we used to have the Zumba classes, right? Things like that. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah,
It
that's,
is a big space in there.
yes, and we also have a community center, so we really have the flexibility of using either or both or whatever.
Typically, the facility was built for children, and when you're in there, you can kind of tell, right? So the adults tend to prefer spaces like the community center, right? The kids, painting classes, crafting classes, like that is a durable space, right? We have been destroying it for 20 years now, right? And it's no worse for the wear, right? So we're likely to gear it toward kids. I mean, I would welcome all, community class instructors, like submit your ideas, right? So we can pick things that might hit, multiple avenues of our community, right? So,
Keep it full.
yeah,
Awesome.
that's the current plan.
So yeah, we're hopeful that we can replace that lost infant. So the book room's paying about $450 a month.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so we think that we can get that back with enough, if there's enough classes that go on there, enough other programs, without developing a whole new staff heavy program.
I mean, I know like Lions, they do bingo, but I know there are people that love doing bridge and things like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like in the
absolutely.
community center, that would be nice.
Yeah.
I know people that go to Paso Robles for that, but
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
if you could do it, and that would bring it.
Yeah, well, we're not allowed to have alcohol in the building.
Should change that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We can
Yeah,
have
the community center, we have the security rules and all of this stuff that.
Yeah, there might be a little prohibitive with some of the consumption issues, right?
Awesome. Great. Anything else on that?
No, just the update.
Everything good?
Thankfully, $450 a month, I don't think will be too,
You could have Melissa's comedy hour.
yeah. I'll practice my stand-up.
There you go.
Well, that would require alcohol consumption. I'm more speaking about the comic, not.
For you guys, I'm a riot. My nephews call me the portable party, so.
Portable who?
Party.
Oh, and they said,
Yeah.
Okay, next item is this Melissa too, Parks and Recreation update.
Yeah, so right now it's like all soccer all the time. We've got like 870 something kids playing right now. Or actually starting tomorrow. Over 90 teams. Well, we'll have 90 teams exactly this year. So it's up, soccer is up. Last year we hit about 750. So we are up in a big way. most of the kids, I did a quick run. I'd say maybe 5% of these kids are, maybe closer to 7% are from out of the district, right? But you know, over 90% are Templeton kids, right? So, which is wonderful. We're handing out rosters tomorrow, so I got like 900 soccer balls all over that big room right now. We're gonna all down to Evers for the coach training orientation, you know, roster and equipment handout tomorrow, which is very exciting. We're starting, so practices will start, you'll start seeing the kids everywhere. School starts on Tuesday, thank goodness. And
Great.
games will run 9, 10 through 11, 12, which I kind of like for numbers. It's kind of fun. So it'll be a lot happening. That'll be a lot to track. We built 5 fields at Evers. We've got Bethel with the 2 fields up there. And then 3 fields, we're gonna build 3 fields out at the middle school this year to accommodate those little U8 players. So it's insane. And I'd say probably about half of these players are in, actually 60% are in U10 and below, right? So there are a lot of little ones coming our way, just for soccer.
Population growing.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, parents will want those kids out of the house.
Yeah, exactly. Last year, U6 division, the youngest little ones, right, was pretty small comparatively, and I think they didn't know where to go. They had, you know, they all called us after the season started, right? So I think we got them all on that. We have a massive email list that we keep for everybody. So I think they all figured out what's going on. So I got them signed up early. So 22 teams in U6. We have like 6 or 7 kids on the team, but there's like 150 of them. It's insane.
What's the total number of kids?
It's like 870 right now, 875.
And then your registration program that you use, everything's okay now? I know that was.
So soccer uses, we play through Cal South in soccer. They're like our parent umbrella organization. They have their own online registration platform
Okay.
that doesn't communicate with ours. And we have to, it kind of runs everything. We have to register the kids into that Cal South program, right? So if we use the TPAR system, is the Tyler Parks and Rec, if we use that, we would have to manually upload, right? Manually type in 870 kids into this Cal South system, right?
Wow.
Because the companies don't, the way the data works, it doesn't talk, right? We couldn't just send them an Excel file for whatever reason. I think they're being lazy. So for soccer, we're using that, right? For the other thing, I mean, it works if you remember your password, right? We did with CIO just Wednesday, got us connected. So everybody in the office can log into TPAR now, which is great. So we can all check what's happening with the registrations and that and use that. The issue with TPAR continues to be on the user side. If you register for something, you don't get a confirmation email that you have registered, right? If you don't remember your password and need to reset your password, you don't receive the email, right? You usually click forgot password, type your email. Great, an email will be sent. It's not sending. And I can't get a hold of anybody at TPAR to fix it. So if you know your password, or you have it saved, or you're a new user, it's working great, right? But it's been consistently an issue for, you know, folks who maybe don't have it saved in their phones or whatever, right?
And then as far as collecting fees, any problems with that? Like
No, that part works just fine. Yeah, thankfully that part, I'm not a big fan of the way the reports get run. They're awful, but I'm working with it. It's, you know, I'll make it work, right? I don't know why they made it so difficult. There's so many other ways to make it easy, but it's okay. So yeah, TPAR is a bit of a bear. We can manually enter. So when folks call and say, I never got my password reset, but I have an account in there and we're already in, right? I or John or Bree, now that they can get into their systems or into their, you know, like admin accounts, right? We just sit with them on the phone, right? And just click all the boxes okay, you're agreeing to the waiver and you're, okay, I'll take your credit card now, and so we do it manually. It's basically the same as them coming into the office. Right?
Oh,
So it's, you know. It's okay,
nothing
it's okay,
we could
everything's
do.
great, it's fine, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, well, I mean, if you see an opportunity to improve that, I mean. Let
Absolutely.
us know.
Absolutely. Somehow, so we have CIO Solutions are like sort of IT company. Greg, who has been amazing assisting with the transition into the cloud, right? Somehow he got a hold of somebody who talks tech words I don't even understand, right? But I think they are working on that. The person who got a hold of is trying to get a hold of somebody else to fix this, right? So.
Great.
How you doing?
Hello? No, where are you
Sorry,
looking
what
for?
side are you looking for?
Like send my daughter for soccer recreation.
Oh,
center.
Hi, I'm Melissa, I run the rec
Hi.
department. How you doing, sweetie?
Sorry.
It's 599 Main Street, right?
Okay,
So
alright.
just one block over that way and it's,
599 Main Street.
Yep,
Thank you so
you
much.
got it, sweetie.
Let's find you anywhere.
I told you. You gotta go to the grocery store.
876.
Right.
Show up at your house.
876. So there's that. Also, October 8th, Saturday, October 8th is the big Living the Dream event, right?
It is.
So we have 6 tables sold. The first one went to Mid-State. Way to go, boys. Thank you very much. So I've got a table here. There's more
October
tables
what?
available, Wayne, no problem.
October 8th,
What's that?
October 8th.
October 8th, Saturday, October 8th. So,
Wow,
yeah, it's back in a big way. So we're collecting all the donations for the auction and, getting everything ready. All About Events donated some tabletops for us and some of the glasses, so we don't have to pay for the wine glasses and stuff. Barrel House has donated the adult beverages again for the beer, so we've got a bunch of wineries donating. If you get the table, you get the VIP table, right? And you get like the fancy wines like Halter Ranch and all the fancy wineries, like a lot of those guys, their kids play with us, right? They coach basketball or whatever. So the fancy wines are going on the tables. So, and then we'll have Bree's daughter, Corinna, is 21. So, and she's graduating from college this year in some sort of vintner situation with wineries and wine tasting. And so she's going to be at the bar this year serving, and it is the weirdest thing to me. She volunteered at the first one as like a sophomore in high school, you know what I mean? And now she's serving the beer. So,
Just getting old.
it'll be, I know, I need to retire. So her and another one of the kids that grew up with us, right? Who's also 21 now, they're gonna be running the bar. So it's
Yeah.
really weird.
Party and, yeah, they have-
Really weird. Everybody's old enough, right? Which is, it's fantastic. So we're getting really excited for Living the Dream, October 8th at the Legion Hall. Rip roaring good time guaranteed for all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
The
and that's-
final concert of the summer is next Wednesday.
Yeah, Monty Mills.
Monty Mills.
Closing us out
Good, good.
Wednesday.
That's a good one. How's that been going, the concerts in Carmel?
It's a concert is a marathon, not a sprint, right? So
Yeah.
11 weeks, 10 concerts. So we had 2 bands this year. Last year was the first time it really ever happened, like it was 1 year, years ago, but 2 bands this year had to back out because someone got COVID. So thankfully, and we found out, of course, like Friday or Saturday, this 2 weeks ago, we found out on a Monday for the Wednesday concert. We have a really robust alternate list that we develop, right? So we just go straight to the alternate list and ask them if they're available, right? And thankfully, in both situations, within 24, 36 hours, we were able to secure a band and spread the word as much as possible. And in both cases, the bands were nothing like what we had originally scheduled, but folks actually enjoyed them. So, which I'm always thankful for. So.
I think it's been,
This has been a
I
pretty
think
good
it's been,
lineup
I
this
think
year.
it's been the best concerts. Primarily because of the weather. We've had outstanding weather every Wednesday.
Amazing weather.
It's been a hot day. It was a warm night, not cold, not windy.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a freezing night
There hasn't been
this
a-
year.
It's been really.
We,
wonderful.
buy staff sweatshirts because it gets so cold out there when we're, closing up at like 9, right? And we haven't had to use them all year. It's kind of weird. So.
Yeah, it's been a great weather year. And a good, I think, some new music. And then everyone's been
Yeah, we got new bands.
steady crowd, even,
Yep.
even last night or 2 nights ago. But, right at 6, it was kind of slow,
It was a little.
but you
yeah.
know what? It filled up. It filled up.
Filled up. So, same situation there. Barrel House and Castoro are donating the beer and the wine for sales at the beer and wine booth that the rec department gets to keep all of the money for. So we've had volunteers coming in every week to pour and serve for that. So it's gone really well. So really well. It's way better than a raffle. We just give people alcohol. They're happy about it. They come to us. We don't have to go to them. Which is quite nice. And because it's all donated, the prices are pretty reasonable for people to purchase. So we're not, we're making a decent chunk of change at every concert, which is nice.
So from what I'm hearing, you're probably gonna make more money this year than you did in the past.
We made more money in 2 nights for selling beer and wine than we did in the raffle all season last year.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Well, that's the
combined.
rest, but yeah.
Combined. And yeah, the concerts always runs in the black. It runs into the black to, about $20,000. It's a big money maker for us. But this year, I think is, if the budget, I think the numbers will show, right? We're gonna be sitting pretty on concerts specifically. So,
That's so exciting. You
Which
get
is
the
awesome.
concerts and then the event that we're gonna have October 8th.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's amazing that you get the beer and the wine for free. I mean,
That's
totally amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
well, I
huge.
mean, their kid wanted to be on that one team, so I did have to make some concessions, nothing's free, right? No, I'm just kidding.
You're being recorded.
It's really nice that, these, Barrel House, their kids do play with us, they coach with us, the adults, the owners, right? They give because they want to give to us, they want to see us thrive, right? So
That's
they value what the rec department provides the community and they want to show that however they can, right?
That's very nice.
The Udsons that own Castoro, their granddaughter is playing soccer this year, so I just suckered their daughter-in-law to coaching, right? So we'll have them for years to come, guys, years to come.
Good, thank you. Anything else on the update?
I feel like that's enough.
That's enough.
Basketball registration starts in a month. But I will be.
I do have one quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
Is there ever gonna be a limit where you can't take any more for soccer?
Yeah, so we're actually looking at sort of adjusting how we do registration next year. We've kind of kicked around a few ideas. I haven't even really talked to Jeff about it yet, so. One of the ideas is Templeton residents or Templeton school attendants, right? Can register in May and June. And if you're outside of the area, you can start registering in July, right? So sort of limiting who can register when, right? Like we don't take out of district registrants until the month of July, to give all the Templeton residents a chance to get in first. Realistically, if I can use some space at the school district, right? We might be able to, reach over 1,000, pretty easily. It's running 4 fields is gonna be a thing, but thankfully we have that great, relationship with the school district where they'll definitely let us use the spaces that are available for the program, because they're all our kids. Right, so.
Well, that being said, we're getting pretty close to the maximum then.
Yeah, right now, if we don't have any more spaces, we
I
have
want
fields
more.
on Saturday, if we have no more location, there's no way to, I can't eke another field out of that either. So, I mean, 3 is the max, so if we, we would have to use other spaces, right? We would have to. So,
Wow.
yeah.
100.
Well, I think we have games running from 8 AM, I don't have the schedules yet, building masters, right, but 8 AM until 5 PM start times every Saturday until mid-October, because that's too late to start, it starts getting dark, so then we just send them off to Passover somewhere else. Like, go play in Cambridge.
All right, well, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, you're working hard, so we appreciate it. I mean,
Yeah.
you definitely. You are, you are Templeton Community Service District, that it's just amazing what you do. We really appreciate it for the community. All right, next item, AB 1826 compliance, the fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
Back to the meat of the matter.
So maybe, since Ron and Randy, maybe just ask, they can come sit right here, so.
Yeah.
More like a
Oh,
process.
sure.
I don't have COVID, so you.
No, I didn't wanna assume we can sit up there.
These chairs are a lot more comfy too.
Yeah, exactly. I got some paper I can spread out, so that's good.
So,
Thank you for coming, you guys.
No, glad for the invitation. Appreciate the participants.
so this first item is pretty simple, really. I just wanted to let you know that Cal Recycle has scheduled appointments with what I think are a number of the special districts, including the county, under IWMA, to do a review of our AB 26 compliance. And so IWMA put together kind of like a little summary sheet, which I just happen to provide for you in case you're interested. So they're according to IWMA, under AB 26, we're supposed to have about 124 more locations doing recycling than we have now currently. I don't know what kind of compliance deadline Cal Recycle will give us. Our meeting, ECSD's meeting with IWA and Cal Recycle is September 1st. So about 2 weeks away.
I'm sorry, when you say recycling center, what is that?
Not recycling center, just recycling like
Some sort of a
service.
A blue bin or container service.
service.
So I'm not sure if I can, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead.
What was the data point on this?
I don't know.
So I can send you a new sheet. So we got the same notice from the IWMA. I've been it for about 2.5 years and probably haven't spoken to anybody about 1826 once. Because it really kind of has no enforcement. There's really been no involvement in it because they've really kind of been focused on 1383, which is about to come out. So as that came out, we got the list of the 130, I think 135 or 155 accounts that 1826 were challenged. And we went through the database, did driver visits. Randy visited a bunch of them. I visited a bunch of them. And I sent a new data sheet to Pete Crum last week, Friday. So the new list that basically we had blue bins and we had blue containers, but they weren't on the route sheet because it's not charged.
Okay.
So if you get a solid waste container, you're
Right,
getting the equivalent of recycling service automatically included in the rate. There's no additional charge and we just deliver the equipment. Somehow through the course of all this getting done or getting changed or getting added, we didn't have the blue bins. We only had the charge for the route that was being done for the solid waste service, because that's the only charge that's allowed because the other stuff's inclusive of the solid waste. So we went through and redid the whole population, and I think I'm down to 9 now that have no 9 commercial establishments that have no recycling. And I believe 3 of them, like Hubba Wines over in Barrel House and Jacob Toff over at Barrel House, share a container. So one that's shown as being not recycling is actually using someone else's. And Jacob Toff told me, we pay Hubba and we just use their container. So it's not really one that's not recycling, just using a joint or a shared container. Barrel House is recycling, but they have a food truck there, which I don't believe it gets billed at all, but they use their services. So I think, again, that falls into another service that's kind of shared with that food type truck that's there. So I'll get this to you as well as I got to Peter last week. And it's not a large number. I think there's 2 trailer parks or mobile homes that qualify for multifamily, 5 units or greater. We haven't gotten an answer on those yet, but we're still looking into them. We're not sure if they're doing the recycling, but not organics. And if organics will be exempt because of the population waiver or not, we're not 100% sure, but we've gone through and re-scrubbed, and I think it's a lot lower than what was initially, the initial data point was given like about a month and a half.
Yeah, I got this maybe 2 weeks ago or something. I haven't dealt much with it. I'm not really all that concerned about Cal Recycle's first visit or whatever, but I was just sharing it since that's forthcoming.
So in a case where they are sharing service like that, I mean, so what happened? What do you do?
Well, the data information we gave them for the first request, which I think was July 1st, I think was when Cal Recycle said we need to have this information and we need to have it looked at. And a little background, 1383 is our responsibility, local jurisdictions, IWMA, the county. Enforcement's ours for the first 2 years. They're gonna give us kind of a ramp up period, then it's gonna transition over to Cal Recycle's enforcement in 2024. They decided to go ahead and take a step back to 1826 and say, well, wait a second, what are we doing there? Let's go ahead and revisit it. So the data point we gave them July 1st was probably not as clean as it could have been, so we cleaned it up a little bit. So we need to put notes into the accounts that we give to the IWMA and to Cal Recycle that says, basically Hub has a shared account.
Okay,
So there's a section that we can mark on, it says you share it, so it does qualify, even though they're not,
all right.
they don't have their own container for
So
it.
I didn't know if we had to make them do their own service, but so it's okay.
It is fine, it's just we need to note it as being shared, right, right.
That's good. Okay.
So we didn't do as much cleaning up of the data as we probably should have before we submitted in July. But since then, we've done a lot more cleaning up. We've gone and visited, made phone calls, and the new data is a lot more closer to where we think that we were, because like I say, it's automatic. It costs you nothing. It's included in your trash rate. You get a bin, you get recycling service.
So anyways, that's coming. We'll share more if there's any hardship that comes out of the Cal Recycle visit or whatever. I don't know if there's much else on here that I didn't even ask us to post a notice on our website about where the food recovery program is, and we did that. They provided it to us and we put it on our website. So there isn't much else to share other than this is the first time I will have been asked to meet with Cal Recycle for anything, for any reason ever. I mean, I've done a couple like webinars voluntarily, but I've never had any interaction with Cal Recycle before. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. Not too concerned yet.
And I may be presuming this, I'm not sure. I guess it has something to do with the next item, but.
Supposedly they're meeting with all the entities, all the special districts that are part of IWA, but I'm not sure.
And then it's an edible food recovery program, so Trader Joe's.
Yeah, you remember when we first started talking about 1383, that was the thing that was sort of really out there that we hadn't really, it was like, okay, now this isn't really related to solid waste. These certain business types need to donate food that is still edible through a system, if they can find one. And so grocery stores have a system like that. And then IWMA and Echo have developed another system that restaurants can use. I don't know right now how active these things are in Templeton. Again, there'll be sort of, I think, a ramp up period. Are you aware of any accounts that are doing any, like restaurants that are doing it yet?
No, I don't know if there's a large enough restaurant in Templeton proper, if you will, that it would qualify for it. They gotta serve like, I think, 250 dinners an evening and so many evenings a week in order to comply or have to comply. Like you say, Albertsons, and I think some of the larger grocery chain stores do participate and always have. But I don't know in Templeton there's anything that's large enough that would
I'm
qualify.
saying, did you say they have to serve 250 meals?
Yeah.
To
have to qualify for some program that has food being reused beyond just organic recycling. Or
oh, so like
compost.
you mean
They don't need
Put it to the normal customers.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. So, okay.
There's a threshold in order for them to meet, like I said, that's a pretty big threshold.
Now, when it comes to most of the services in town, Jack's and, you mentioned Trader Joe's and all that, they do have food waste service with us. So they do at some point have some program with us that it goes already into the organics they have for years.
But they don't have the edible food.
That one doesn't fall under it.
What's that?
Big Iron, McPhee's.
McPhee's for sure, Big Iron, I believe they do, I need to double check on that one, I'm pretty sure they do.
Is that it?
That's it. It was just. I don't know much. I don't know. I mean, I'll know more in a couple weeks, and if we start getting written up, then we'll figure it out.
You're just not long-winded like person sitting next to you.
I don't have much to share yet.
I just say, I don't know how much fun that is compared to all the kids having a good time.
Yeah,
Right.
all right, well, thank you. And then last item, options for solid waste compliance. So this is.
So this
where
item.
we're gonna take a look at IWM.
Yeah, so this item comes out of your late July board meeting where the board ultimately retained membership with IWMA, but asked that.
Jeff, could I for a second interrupt real quick? Your last statement about 1826, compliance for 1826 is on a county level. It's not on a service district level. So therefore, I think there's not as big of an issue on 1826 as on 1323.
I don't really, like I said, I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
That's no. I have no reason to believe we're in trouble. I just.
No, right.
This is the first time the calorie cycle, I don't even know if I know what a calorie cycle person is.
Come on over to our facility, I'll introduce
You'll
you.
go.
They visit us every month. so-
They've got antennas and big.
So anyways, this item here comes out of your, the board's July, board meeting where the board retained membership with IWA, but asked that with the help of this committee, we evaluate options, that would replace IWA, to evaluate those, and that could, if there's a recommendation, go back to the board to be further considered. So, I just want to spend some time, I didn't spend a lot of time ahead of that July meeting flushing out those options, because I may have erroneously made the assumption that unless I could identify an option that was going to be less expensive to the community or the district, it probably wasn't. I made the assumption that probably wasn't going to be considered. I know now that that was a bad assumption, and that the board wants to look at other alternatives. I outlined some of those alternatives in the report, and then since then I've provided some additional information to you. So there, initially, when the county split from IWA, 15 months ago or something, some special districts thought that the county might be an alternative if we wished to go there. In fact, Debbie Arnold had told me, even in this room, like maybe 2 years ago now, that right after the county had, maybe not quite 2 years ago, but well, it must have been, because it was here. We didn't have any meetings before since COVID. So anyways, that if the county left IWA, they would help us out. So the county does split. That takes a while to facilitate that divorce. And maybe it's still not 100%. The county stands up its own staffing. They developed a division within the Public Works Department, Solid Waste Division, and have taken on these services. It wasn't quite as clean as I just described. In the meantime, Los Osos CSD and the county agreed to allow Los Osos CSD to have their franchise back. The county had kind of taken it from them, even though their power wasn't technically deactivated, as a part of Los Osos CSD's bankruptcy from some dozen years ago or so. So that has now, to my knowledge, been implemented. Los Osos CSD now has its own franchised hauler. The county also has, because they gave up Los Osos CSD, they were able to determine that almost all the unincorporated areas of the county qualified for these low population density waivers through 1383. So really, the county doesn't have as robust of a requirement as far as 1383 is concerned as the rest of us do in meeting those programs, those program needs. That being said, the county's position at the staff level right now is, while we're capable of taking on, of providing these services for you, we're not willing. That's the message to me and to at least a couple of other CSDs that have inquired with the county staff. Now, I don't know that that's a permanent position. I think the county admits that they could do so. Maladen, who's the division leader of the solid waste division, was real clear to say it's going to cost you more than same with IWA, because our costs are higher, they're less efficient. They have about 3 people I think they have about 1 person for every 5,000 accounts or something like that on the staff level, and IWA's got about 3 times as many accounts per staff member. So there's some efficiencies to be lost if that was an option, we went there. So I would expect those costs to be higher, but I really didn't dive in it any further, because right now they're saying the door is not open. We're not accepting your business. So while we could do so, we're not willing to. Now, I think in the long run, we're going to know more over time if the county is going to be an alternative. I think there's one, the county leaving IWMA was a political decision. And the politics of the county may be changing. We know there's been one change on the board of supervisors as based on the June election. There might be another one in the November election. We just don't know. So it was an issue that if it's possible the county would rejoin IWMA. I think that's something that several of us anticipate at least being a consideration in the near future, once the new board is seated, but I don't know that. If they don't do that, and it's a permanent service, maybe they'd be receptive in the long term to allowing some of us to seek sort of more of a formal cost to do this effort from the county. But again, right now, the staff is saying no. I think we have a couple of alternatives. We could lobby, let's say Debbie Arnold or John Bashong, who's obviously were part of the effort to leave IWMA, to say, hey, staff's telling us no. You told me, in Debbie's case anyway, yes. So open the door and let us in. But I haven't done that lobbying yet. So the staff's position is it's a hard no right now. So that's on the county side. I did have a chance to talk with Ron since your July meeting about, I thought all along that we are well situated with Mid-State having, particularly because they have a physical presence in Templeton, which is quite different than most of the other franchises, where just the trucks come in, take the garbage out and leave. To do more services for us than the current contract, the current franchise agreement has. And so I therefore think it's possible for Mid-State it would require some contract changes or a separate agreement to take on more of the responsibilities that IWMA provides. For example, Mid-State doesn't take care of, for Templeton right now, household hazardous waste or e-waste or those kinds of things. They may for IWMA, but not for TCSD specifically. And I'm not sure how that really works for.
We don't handle it at all.
Yeah, we don't handle it. The only thing that we handle in part of our programs that is sponsored through the IWMA is the curbside oil pickup program.
Motor oil.
Oh, you guys do curbside oil
Yeah,
for Templeton?
Yes.
it's part of our service mix. We get reimbursed by the IWMA for it, but we get the containers and we get it scheduled and then we get reimbursed by the county for that cost. But we don't do e-waste, we don't do household hazardous waste. We have the ability to within our permit that would allow us to, but right now, most of the drop-off center is Chicago.
To some degree, yes, there are some permit aspects that we would have to modify, but yes, we do have everything in place that we would need to make those modifications.
So we have a luxury that perhaps other communities don't have, in that Mid-State could take on more if everything aligned just right. And from the reporting side, Mid-State believes they can handle the bulk of what now IWMA is doing on our behalf, but not at no cost, right? These are additional services. So I think that could be an option we could spend time on if this committee felt like that's something that you wanted to look into. I haven't done like a thorough written analysis on it. And then, I think there's some obvious pros and cons. I wouldn't expect it to be less expensive than what we pay IWMA. There's some risks for Mid-State too. Probably the biggest risk to you is it binds us with Mid-State. And I've had some of you want to alter that agreement so we don't have this 10-year rolling average. If we had this kind of agreement with Mid-State, we probably wouldn't find anybody else who could do these tasks, because Mid-State has the benefit of a location here that none of the other haulers have. So for example, if we were with Waste Management, they don't have a physical place here. There'd be no way they could handle, they'd have to rent space or something to do those services.
We've said for 10 years anyways, right? No matter what, we have to deal with Mid-State.
Right, what happens in 10 years if you stay, right?
Well, who knows, 10 years.
Yeah. Who knows? I don't know that we get back in IWMA.
Yeah.
So really what I say, and I maybe probably should have started here, is the county went through this exact effort.
Yeah.
A year and a half ago. And they had a consultant perform a study And the study says, don't leave IWMA, it's gonna be more expensive to do it on your own. But they did anyway, for political reasons. This isn't an area that anybody with the district staff has any expertise in. I've never met a cal recycle person,
You've never went?
met a cal recycle person. I guess that'll change in a couple weeks, but, you know, there aren't, in talking to the other special districts, there isn't gonna be interest in doing something with other special districts. If anything, the other special districts have considered giving their franchise back to the county. This is a thorn in their side. They did it because it was easy early on. Just the 1383 stuff is enough to make them less interested in staying with the refuse service. You know, they don't want to spend more time and energy in this area. And we're having to already just because of 1383. So I don't think there's going to be any takers to do some sort of a potential partnership. I think that would be an exercise that would be meritless to pursue.
So you talked to Los Osos?
Yes,
I mean, they're at 16,000.
Los Osos is a very big fan of IWMA.
Really?
Yeah, actually, he's the general manager of Los Osos is very good friends with Peter Crow.
Because I thought they're at 16,000. I mean, how could they? I mean, they're in the same position as we are, where their vote really doesn't. I mean, their voice doesn't really matter. So
Well, yeah, I think many of the special districts agreed with our philosophy that special districts didn't have a fair say in IWMA. But I don't think that's enough to convince them to do something about it. So I don't think there's gonna be any special districts that are gonna join our effort to do something, to partner up. Again, I think there might be willingness for one or two to go to the county because that's kind of a hands-off, you know, just to pass this on to somebody else kind of a thing, as opposed to kind of partner up. We could get a consulting firm to do a independent review, like the county did, and that would analyze your options. But I'm not sure that the results will be that different than what we're kind of talking about right now. It's gonna cost more and you don't have a lot of them. But I think I wanted to use this time because this is a very intensive, I think it could be a lot of time consuming effort. Because I have to learn this business in order to report to you on it. Or I have to engage with somebody who knows the business, like an HF&H or somebody else who can help us understand it. Because I don't know it. I don't know it well. But I didn't get the sense from the board, even though you were dissatisfied with staying with IWMA, that you were willing to put money towards looking at these alternatives.
I thought we had, didn't we think we should?
Well, I think what we wanted to look at it further. I'm not sure that we wanted to go out and get a consultant. I mean, I would still like to know that from what I've heard today is that Midstate can probably do most of that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would like to put a figure on that.
Yeah, have you guys?
I mean, I think we're getting screwed by everybody here, and so therefore we are. But there's still a cost element here, and I'm not willing to spend, you know, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 just to make a point. So if it's gonna be an increase in cost, which I know it will be, I'd like to know what that cost is before I can actually say, you know, yes, no, maybe. I mean, otherwise, if we might as well just, you know, bite the bullet and go with IWMA. To me, it's in the long run, it's gonna be easier. It's gonna be cheaper. But
Yeah, I think there's, it's an imperfect arrangement, you know, as we've now learned, it's an imperfect arrangement. If the only alternative you wanted to explore in depth is a partnership with Midstate, I think that's something we could do. Our costs would be on the legal side, because I'd have to figure out what duties can we legally pass on to Midstate Solid Waste. You know, our role in this compliance is really to provide oversight and to ensure that Midstate's reporting this information accurately and whatnot. So there'll have to be some level of that in this, that's retained with TCSD. We wouldn't be able to turn this over entirely, but I don't know where that line. I don't know where that line is. So I would need to get some assistance with that, but
It's my understanding that as of now, our only option is to go with this thing. Other than if we're gonna do it all ourselves, it's ridiculous, because we can't, and that would be way too expensive. So, I mean, right now, we don't know whether the county, right now, the county won't.
county's not an option right now,
They're not, you know.
unless we lobby them.
In November, after the new board, if we see a change, that might be, well, then I think the county will go back on it. But anyway, so the only option we have is bid state. So I don't know, I mean, I don't want to spend months on it, but I guess I would like to get a ballpark figure on, can they do it? What would the charges be? And then what do we have to do?
I mean,
I'd still like to know that, and I think the board would like to know that.
have you guys thought about this? I know obviously it's been a month or so we discussed that.
We have, and Randy and I have met, as well as Jeff and I have met on it and talked a little bit about looking at what HF&H was saying, that the components of the services provided by the IWMA costs. And I kind of went through them all and listed them and said, the only problem is, if you look at what they're saying their costs are, like household hazardous waste disposal processes and collections and drop-off centers cost them $581,000 in their audited financials for 2021. But there's no breakdown in saying that of that, 40 people came from Templeton, 80 people came from Paso Robles. Then there's no usage about how that came to be $581,000. So if I take the total population of the county and say, okay, Templeton is basically 3.5% of it, and I take those costs and run it through all the different components of what they provide within their audited financials of about $2.6 million a year. If we do 3.5% of it, it's roughly about 95 to 105,000, depending on what year it is, cost per year by population, which is Templeton's population of the total county. But I don't know if that ties to the specific usage of material dropped off at Chicago grade landfill or material dropped off at other facilities. I don't know how that ties to the actual population. I just did it by the total population counted to the county and said, well, okay, that comes back to what you were saying at the board meeting. It's about $115,000 a year that I think the IWMA fee is paid for by Templeton, right?
Yes, but yeah.
So it's kind of close within that range, but to sit here today and say we'll be less than the 5.4% they just went up to, I wouldn't be able to say that.
Well,
Just be impossible.
well, I mean, at the board, I mean, at least my impression was that we were okay with staying at in that ballpark price. We are concerned that we don't get any voice with IWMA. So obviously, working with you directly, that's gonna change that. So, I mean, it's, so we are paying the money, but we're really not seeing any benefits. But if we work and we pay that money to you, then obviously you're here.
It's very direct. It's very direct and eliminates the indirect and eliminates the lack of representation. We get all that. But again, a couple components come to mind. Jeff just mentioned, if you do leave, you got to kind of ask to get back in if for some reason it doesn't work out to your satisfaction or to our ability to be able to do it. Because they can let you out with a 6-month notice, but then you got to ask to get back in for some reason or another, if for some reason it doesn't work out. Not overly worried about that. I think we can do it. Most of the data reported by the IWMA for Templeton Service District is provided by us. Randy and his group does all that reporting as it is, and then they give and they rolled it up. I think President Logan also said, there are some benefits to a larger base of data because you're kind of lumped in with all the other communities. So if there is parts that we're missing or things that aren't being done correctly, that gets kind of diluted into the total population of the county reported by one entity, which is the IWMA. That could be a benefit also to the whole process. But I'm not fearful of us not being able to do it. It's just, again, I don't know what all the components are. Is there 40 people who use it from Templeton versus 600 people who use it from SLO? And that's where the number comes to be 581,000 for household hazardous waste drop off. I'm not sure, or the electronics, but there's no itemized listing by what component of it's being used by what.
Does anybody have that information?
I don't think it's being collected.
I don't think it's being tracked.
No, so what ends up happening is IWA has various sites scattered throughout the county, there are drop-off locations, like I think that's on Saturdays at Chicago Great Landfill.
Mhm.
And you just show up and drop off your paint.
I think you gotta show an address, proof of the fact you live in the county, but I don't think it's
I don't
tracked at
know, I
all.
don't know if they're
There's
documented.
no manifest, and there's no individual tracking, I don't believe.
Yeah, and that's because all the, right now, until
I just.
the county left, everybody was part of IWA. And then when the county left, they contracted back with IWA to maintain the same services. So the county didn't stand up new services for these kinds of services.
So like when I go to drop stuff up at Home Depot, is that like goes through IWMA?
No, they probably got their own programs,
They have their own
because of their business, they generally fall under a different
Because I
category,
take-
they'll have to contract with
I
themselves.
take paint and.
Sure.
Light bulbs.
And that becomes another
batteries.
part of the, the question too, is right now, everybody's gotta kind of track out to like, Chicago grade landfill, or they gotta go past a landfill or whatever it is, and some people might go, I'll just hold on to it for a while. And now that we put it in the community, all of a sudden, holy crap, we got some place right here,
Yeah,
which is great, it's fantastic, because that's what you want them to do, but that also turns into the elevated cost of disposal and handling and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff, so the dynamics could change just based
just
upon-
because we're.
Sure.
Sure, and then if if Templeton residents weren't allowed to dispose of the IWMA sites, then probably the county, and we wouldn't want to be paying for Paso residents to dispose at Mid-State.
Yeah.
There'd have to be some enhanced.
Well,
They're gonna have to come in and show their ID and
Yes.
say, or come in with their bill and their ID and say, we're.
Oh, if they have an account,
PCSD.
yeah,
Right,
if they have an account with
Sure.
you, you would know. If they have an account with you, that's easy to figure out.
Well, if they live in an apartment or something like that, they don't have their own account. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Might be,
usually,
yeah, it might be bin service that covers 14 residents that, not necessarily get a bill, maybe in your HOA fee or something. I mean, it's certainly part of the risk, but again, I don't know if that's a huge encumbrance that we can't get over or get around. I did, but I couldn't sit here today and say, oh, it'll be less than the 5.4, or it'll be identical to the 5.4. And I hate to be here 3 years from now going, it's actually 8.6, it's not 5.4. I mean, I don't know. There is some benefit to having a larger network that allows for it to, service the community. I think there is, but certainly something that we're all for. We understand the lack of voice and lack of the issue. But we also don't want to be directing, the board to decide on something that may become a bigger issue on the cost side that we don't have all the identity of all the different components that make it.
So is there any way, what can we do moving forward? What's our options? Are you able to?
I think as Jeff mentioned, a little bit more time other than just the month we've had now since the board meeting
Yeah.
would be beneficial for us to dig into a little bit deeper. And then, of course, the most recent change with that, maybe with Peter taking over, I think he's a trash man. I think he's gonna be good for the whole process. I think they're a little tight-lipped as far as what they disclose as far as the data points. That may be self-serving because they don't want it to be sensitive to, well, we never use it and you guys use it a lot, but why is it being brought into our 5.4% franchise or IDMA fee? I don't know if I can get the data to do the analytical work to say it would make sense or not, but population wise, it's pretty easy. You could go through the whole thing and say, 160 some odd people, 240,000 people and blah, you can back it into it, but
I don't think there's a reason to believe that the traditional programs would prevent us from going down this road. There's nothing in Templeton that makes me think that, oh no, our residents are gonna be just dumping all kinds of electronic waste. We're not that different than a Tascadero or anybody else. It's probably gonna be close. The thing that we we don't know enough about is the implementation of 1383 and the reporting and whatnot. And while I think Mid-State can do that reporting, ultimately, we don't know how heavy-handed Cal Recycle's gonna end up being. This is still in its infancy. So even we can't really look to IWA's prior costs because they really haven't implemented it yet either.
right.
And then we'd have to end up with our own educational component, our own, right now, if we're a member of IWA, they do the education, right? They're part of the enforcement team. We would be taking that on, we collectively. I think much of it could stay with Mid-State. But TCSD would have to retain some component of it. But I don't know where that line is drawn just yet. So if you think that this is the only the viable alternative you want to look at further, we could dig deeper with Mid-State, develop better cost estimates. Like I said, I don't want to see Mid-State because they're willing to. I don't want to see them sign up for a program that ultimately ends up being a cost loser in the long run, because that's gonna somehow eventually affect our rates down the road.
Yeah,
Eventually, it's gonna show back up. So we don't wanna enter into something that we need to be a long-term solution. To be low cost initially because it looks attractive, but not work out long term, because then it's just gonna affect the rates that the customers end up paying. So, but if there's only one option that you want to dive deeper into, I think we could spend more time on it with Midstate. Just understand there's pros and cons of, even if it can be the same price, there's still pros and cons.
I mean,
But you. Sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You keep saying if this is the only area or solution we want to look at, but it's the only one that there's out there. So I'm
As
not.
far as
sure.
I know, yeah, I mean, I don't, the other concepts I think are not available to us right now.
I mean, some of the other concepts that you could think about, just knowing what I know from previous experiences, would be the city or the district taking on their own and doing it through their public works department or something like that. That's generally the way that would happen. But other than that, generally it's the waste hauler or some sort of, collective group like the JPA, doing something to that nature.
Right. Well, again, to that point though, as the county did 15 months ago, they kind of said we're going out on our own and went back to, okay, can we subcontract these services back from you, because do we want to duplicate the network of services providers all within the same county when we already have them? I mean, I can hire a person to stand there and wait for a household has a leak drop off every other Saturday or one Saturday a month or whatever. But if one person comes, that price per that one event, that one transaction is very high versus the same 8 hours paid by someone in Chicago Great Landfill that has 40 transactions that day. It's just a matter of the numbers, you can do it, sure, but I don't know if it could sit here today and say it'd be less money or the same money.
I don't see our utilities. I mean, that to me, that would cost a fortune.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at this right away and go, hey, if we're only talking about $115,000, if I had to hire an analyst level employee, it's gonna cost me $150,000.
It's gone, yeah, it's gone, yeah.
I can't, so that's why I didn't spend a lot of time on it, because I just said, I don't even have enough money to hire one person here to run solid waste programs. Now, Midstate has an advantage, they're in this business already. That being said, I would really wanna, I would wanna make sure that they don't sign up for something that's not gonna work long-term either.
Are there any comparable programs out there that you could take a look and just see, or is it even possible to run a pilot program, for a few months so that way you guys could figure out what it's gonna entail and,
I could do
costs?
some of the things in there are, currently we're not we're not a registered household hazardous waste collector, so we don't hold that certification. Now, I can utilize a company that does that, and they can act in our behalf to come out and do those kinds of things and do stuff on site. So could there be a possibility? Yes, I'd probably need to have some meetings with Cal Recycle and making sure that, I'm above board and we're doing the things that we need to do. I need to figure out AB or SB 1383. So if there's some conversations there, possible. I think so.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
something that
if
we
we
might
could-
be able to test, but I just need to make sure that I'm above board with all my permits and everything.
Yeah.
in order to-
yeah, I mean.
Well, and then how would we, but see, I guess part of it is, some of these services people only use once every year or two, right? Like something like paint drop off, it's not something they're using every month, unless you're a painter. But, so we would need to start, if we're gonna communicate to our public about changes in this regard, I don't know that a 3-month thing is gonna be very helpful.
Well, I mean,
Because
no,
you still go out to Chicago Grade or
Yeah,
however you do.
but
it.
I mean, if we do like a 6-month thing or something like
I
that.
just take a month of paint.
I was gonna say, one of the other things that maybe we can look into, of course, we need to sit down and make sure that it works and that we can do it. Is when we do one of our community cleanups where we invite people over down to the facility to drop things off. That, hey, you know what, this year we're gonna do a one-time thing of, we're gonna take electronics, paint, whatever the case may be, to just kind of test the waters to see what that's gonna be. I just need to make sure that permit wise, that I'm not putting us or the district,
And then when you say have the different sites, electronic waste site, is that gonna I remember another location where they just had a big bins sitting in like an empty parking lot somewhere and people went and just dump their stuff.
Well,
Type
yeah,
of thing, or
it's
do
gotta
they
be
don't?
controlled because California requires, there's some documentation that some of that stuff comes in, so.
No,
They call it the Universal Waste Program, and you have to go through and document, you know, a name, address.
Oh, so you need to have
Some
any
of that
different-
stuff, but depending on how it works, some of that stuff does, CRTs, TVs.
Okay,
Some of those things have to have that documentation, some of them not so much. I need to refresh myself on some of it. It's been a while since I've ran a facility that's done that. But I do have some friends that, you know, eat recycling in California, that do some of that stuff. It's just, it will take a little.
Just keep in mind, IWMA, for these stuff, none of, they're not actually doing it. They're just contracting. for it,
yeah, exactly.
So,
And that's
So-
what I think we paying more because it's like going through different vendors and each one obviously, has their own profit margin levels and things like that. So that's why I think if we work directly with you, we will get better programs and maybe,
Well, and just to be, you know, open about it, right? Just because we accept the waste doesn't mean that we dispose of the waste. So
Yeah.
we still have to subcontract. We have to use,
the same,
you know, we have to use a household hazardous waste contractor to come in and make sure that we're disposing of things in the proper manner, that it's going, you know, like a clean fleets or a safety clean or somebody like that, that handles that specific type of waste. We don't. You know, electronics, same thing. So to some degree, yes. Now, when it comes to the staffing of the site, which in our mind, we're thinking, you know, using the North County recycling site because that would make the most sense for us. We would staff that. So you're not gonna have clean fleets coming in and standing there and staffing it and then, you know, paying that cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like the electronic waste, since your board meeting, IWA had a board meeting and they did it on July 22nd. Reviewed the CEWS, which is their electronic subcontract that it comes in and picks up their electronic, and it says, we're gonna go to the following 5 locations in, Morro Bay, the landfill, Tuscadero, Paso Robles, and then we'll pay you for these parts and we'll charge you for these parts, and whatever you have, that's how it's gonna work. We spoke to these folks and they said, we'll come and do it at another location if you wanna be a location. So we can get someone to come and do it. It's no different than what that NA does with these subcontractors. I don't know if they would give us those same prices if it's based on or sensitive to volume or anything else. But we could get that price and say, here's what we would do based on what we think we'd be pulling out of Templeton and the Templeton residents. We could certainly put that together, and probably the same thing with Safety Clean on the liquid waste and the paint waste.
wouldn't those subcontractor then, I mean, you were saying that they have to get the information, the names and.
On some of it, yes.
Well, I mean, wouldn't those people would know, how much is coming from Templeton?
Yes, but again, that's not something I could see readily available or disclosed by IWA.
No, but no.
Oh, would they give it to us directly?
Yeah, if you're going to.
I guess we
work with
could
this-
ask.
We could always ask.
There's no volume listed in their quote, like we're gonna do this and this based on site, but maybe they might.
We can have that, but obviously there's some confidentiality issues with them and their customers. They may not be willing to give up because IWMA is their customer. We can ensure.
Okay, I mean, at least they would know. I mean, they know. So yeah, see what.
Yeah, they even list in here, like you mentioned, they flat metal bin haul and transportation, $450 for X amount of pounds and $650 for another X amount of pounds. So they do have the same exact thing. So I think we would get that service and we could get that, but again, I don't know as far as where it would sit as far as price point versus the volume.
I mean, I personally would like, and I think it sounds like you're interested as well. I mean, just find out what you guys could do with the price point and if there, as I said, maybe a pilot program we could get going, like we could do that. I'm interested. It seems like Peterson is interested, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
is there a threshold? I mean, as we start to scrub this and fine tune the numbers, in your mind, do you have like a limit of what you're willing to spend beyond the 5.4%?
I was thinking another 20,000.
And is that then something you want to pass along to the ratepayers, or would come out of like the franchise fees?
That's
I
I think
kind of
some
like
people
to
would
just
think
to get
that.
that ballpark figure and get the information out there, and I think we all know that it's gonna have to go to the ratepayers. if we raise that price. There's some other things though, after this conversation that kind of worry me too, that the fact that if we leave IWMA, county will, assuming the election goes away, I think it's gonna go, the county will go back to IWMA. And something doesn't work and we have to go back, they have to okay it. They may not, they may just throw it in our face because we wouldn't go along with their strong arm tactics and do what they wanted. So they may just say, nope, you're out of luck. That's, you know, from what I'm listening here too, I'm not sure that Mid-State is really all wants to really hop into this and fly. You know, I think they would do it, they're gonna do it, would do it because for us, but I'm not sure this is something that, you know, they want to add to their resume or what was, so to speak.
Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that's probably pretty true. I mean, only because I think there is a lot of work there. Jeff mentioned the uncertainty of the potential next 2.5-year rollout of SB 1383. I don't know, you know, where the enforcement's gonna go and what the amount of additional work that may come out of that. I mean, when you start looking about dumpster diving and making sure the container contaminants are in the right container versus the wrong container. And then again, I don't know where that evolves to. So there is some fear and concern about that. You're exactly right, Board Member Peterson. But I think at the end of the day, we're open to it. Would we raise our hand and say you should do this? Brad Goodrow has never been a big fan of the IWMA for many reasons. I think there's been an evolution that has come over the course of the last 2 or 3 years that has come to a different place than where it was when he was not as big of a fan back then. But I still think he would support us trying to do as much as we could to try to pull away from the IWMA, but not if it didn't make sense for the relationship with Templeton and or the people we serve.
Yeah, no, and that's why, of course, we're asking for you guys to do your due diligence and see what you're comfortable with.
I was gonna say, I think that's, we're fully capable of doing the due diligence, but I also think, you know, to some of the points like what is being expressed here with the concern about the ongoing election, maybe that gives us the time to wait up until that point, kind of see what's going on, gives us a little time to really put together some true numbers, come in, evaluate what's happening, you know, with the climate in the county, evaluate what really those prices might look like, and you know, kind of see at that junction, what's the climate like? What's the best thing? How does it work? Are we still comfortable? Are you still comfortable? Because we'll do whatever you need us to do. I mean, in the end of the day, what you want us to do, we're here to help. We're here to serve. But I think that would give us some time to put together some good numbers, or at least some decent numbers to have an idea of the direction, and you'll have a better idea.
Okay.
I'd almost like to see us bring this back to the board the next meeting with some of the stuff we've talked about here. I mean, I think there's a time to make a stand and there's a time not to, and I'm not sure that from everything I'm hearing, that I think this is that big a deal to make a stand and say we're gonna go on our own. I see too many unknowns. I see, you know, probably extra staff work that we don't have the staff. I mean, I'm almost tempted to go say, let's go back. Join IWMA and see what happens, but I think this discussion needs to go to more decision. And see, you know, but if you could have some more figures for us or something.
Well, I mean, and like I said, we kind of going back, I think based upon what I understand of the motion, you guys did join the IWMA.
Yes,
You
we
are
have,
one of
yeah,
the-
we are.
They signed a JP.
Yeah, we're in till we get out.
Right, and that would be my concern, or, you know.
Yeah, no, we're
You're in until you're out, so make sure.
Yeah.
That you do your due diligence.
Yeah. So I mean, are you saying that you don't want the do any?
No, I'm not saying, I mean,
So
yeah,
they could go do their research and then we wait, as he mentioned, wait till see what happens with the county. And then this would be some decision that we could come back and bring it back to board in January, February time. And then that's what the board had said previously. They said 6 months. They had given 6 months. So we have 6 months to figure this
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I mean, well, and we have to give, I think, 6 months, we have to give 6 months notice to
Yeah.
the IWA, but I don't wanna give that notice
No,
unless
no,
we
no.
have a place to go.
Exactly,
Yeah,
no.
right.
So to me, we should take that 6 months, figure this out, and then if it's a go, then we'll let you guys know, okay, we're gonna go ahead and do this and then give 6 months.
But see, I don't disagree with that, but I don't. The way I'm looking at this, I don't think it's gonna be done. You know,
Yeah, no, I mean.
I just think it's too small an area to be spending a whole lot of time and effort just to make a point.
But it's
If
not just to make a point.
Well,
it's,
it is, because unless we can really make a go of this, which I don't think if we study it for another 12 years, that we're not gonna be no until we actually do it. And then there's always the unknown
Well,
when you do it. So anyway,
I mean, that's true with
but
anything.
the way I understood the board's feeling was it was to make a point. Everybody was upset because we only got
No, I mean.
9 people, only got 1 vote, whatever that is.
Well, mine was, I mean, as far as for me was concerned, and we are paying the rates that we're paying. So I thought that for our ratepayers is, it would be an advantage if we had more of a voice. I mean, and also in this case, if their services are available right in Templeton to take advantage of, so that's a better service we get paid.
You're absolutely 100% right. But
So it's not just to make a point.
You're wishing something that I don't think is gonna.
Well, I mean,
So we can find out.
that's why they want, that's why I'm saying they should do their due diligence. I mean, yeah, I mean, we don't.
But even
But I mean, I'm
after they,
looking at these numbers, I'm sorry, but I'm just looking at these numbers and, Los Osos is at 6.1% of the population. We're at almost 3% of the population. And then we get 1 vote versus like you could see Pismo Beach or Morro Bay or, even, Grover Beach at 4.8%. Really close, yet we are not really, we're not giving the opportunity to for the services and things like that. So I mean, I politically I understand what's going on, but at the same, I'm looking at trying to improve the services with the money that we are already spending. So if we could do
well,
that.
that's fine, but from what I'm hearing, that's not gonna happen. We're gonna have to pay more. There's a lot of things they can't tell us until we do this. I mean, there are too many, to me,
Mhm.
too many unknowns, but I'm all for finding out and take,
What if we do this? What if we take the back of the napkin bath we've got so far? Put a little bit more time into this.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want, because Mid-State's been such a great partner and shown such willingness to do whatever we think of. What I'm most fearful of is signing up for something that doesn't work long-term for either them or us.
yeah.
So
I agree.
this costing needs to be something that they can look at, because we go that route, it needs to be a forever solution or a pretty darn long-term solution.
Yes.
So then we need to make sure that there's enough confidence in this costing that they feel like, yeah, we can sign that contract and we can do this for 10 or 20 years,
Yeah.
not just a year.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah. And really understand the reporting requirements and also understand what those implications are on TCSD. I think we could do some of that without investing a ton of time.
Yeah.
And then report back with some ballpark, something you can see in black and white. Some of this information can be hard to get, like if we're not capturing it on the inbound side, we really don't know. But
I mean,
So-
ultimately, it comes down to, yeah, as Jeff mentioned, we just want to work with you if you can, and it just it could be obviously additional revenue for you, and you could do more stuff with that, but if it's not gonna work out, then it's not gonna
And
work
we
out.
appreciate the opportunity, we really do.
So, yeah, so if
We
it's not,
have to do the diligence.
yeah, so I mean, if it's not gonna work out, then,
So is it-
we're staying with IWM.
so
What's the time period of what you're suggesting?
Yeah, how
2
long you
months?
guys, well, the
I'd
sound.
say first of the year probably be safest. I mean, definitely 2 or 3 months. We could probably get another report to you that would be more detailed than what we did in the last 28 days.
yeah, I mean, I guess I want to make sure that based on this committee, that is the alternative that you want to investigate and not other alternatives.
Well,
And I don't know about it,
Yeah, I know.
but I just want to make sure that this is the one you want us to look at now. And unless or until such time that another alternative shows up, this is what this is what we'll work towards initially, not to, just to get a better handle on those costs. And
One other thing though, that I just thought about in terms of the administration part, so they do all the services and things like that, but I guess you would need to find out if what's, you and your staff have to do as well.
well, that's what we need to figure out. This is the area that I need to work with. I mean, so the concept originally was, can you guys do everything IWA does? And what does that all cost? But at some point, IWA and or TCSD is really has to provide some sort of oversight of the program, because Mid-State's administering these
Yes.
programs. And it's not just the household hazardous waste. I'm not that worried about that. It's AB 1383 compliance and all these other things. So we'll have to figure out, is it a matter of, can they just sort of self-certify? Or do we really have to have eyes and ears on these programs where we're out actually doing some of these inspections?
So then that's where I was wondering, then that may lead to, well, I mean, which obviously with additional costs that we need to know about, but is it possible that you need to get a consultant to help you with that?
Well, that's what, I mean, if we were to run the program, you're talking about possible to get a consultant just to figure this out initially, or to actually run the program?
Run whatever, like, if you think, you need help with, whatever.
I think right now I need help knowing what we need help with.
Okay.
Like that's.
So that's why you would need a consultant to figure out.
Well, I would need to understand.
You're gonna hire somebody and then go cha-ching, and that's
Yeah.
gonna raise.
I think the issue, I think without spending a lot of money, we can try to figure out
Yeah.
which duties I can pass along. But it will not be, I mean, we don't have expertise in this area. So, and really nobody, I mean, this 1383 is a whole new thing, right? I mean,
Nobody.
And I can ask some of those questions, like I said, when I meet, when my Calvary cycle comes in for our annual inspection, I'll try to kind of sit down and start, hey, we're looking and investigating some of these ideas, what does it entail? What do we have to do? And start getting some of that information that I can give to Jeff, and I mean, that might be helpful, but I know Jeff's concern is that he needs to do his diligence to make sure that he understands it and he's following up, so that way he's not putting you guys.
yeah, well, we don't want to bring you a proposal or bring the board a proposal that fails in time. So that's what we need to bring. It needs to be something that everyone's pretty confident can work long-term, not to say that IWMA is just set it and forget it either, right? We don't know what their costs are going to be long-term necessarily either.
We don't know what state of California is gonna come up with next for us to do,
Yeah. The field is changing, over the last few decades, really,
Yeah.
right? From getting rid of garbage to now everything is touched and handled.
And then, I mean, to be honest, though, I mean, besides just IWMA, I mean, I have always felt like that Templeton was missing a recycling center type of thing where people could take their stuff. So, I mean, if we could add that, and I know other people
I mean,
have,
like a buyback center.
buyback or
Yeah, well, I mean,
recycling or
there's-
something.
We just talked to Brad about doing that before.
There's some pros and cons in that, and there's probably some deeper conversations to be had
Yes.
that kind of go back to maybe some of the things that were brought up earlier in your guys' meeting. It's not a hard no, but
Yeah,
there's some things that come along with that.
yeah, I mean, after all, we are getting some fees, from that, and so that money, I know we put along with Parks and Rec, but, we should be looking at other, opportunities for.
Sure.
So I mean.
But that again is in flux, because I think Cal Recycle with the new director, she's been kind of involved in trying to get replanted back up and running again in some
Okay.
form or fashion, because they went bankrupt.
Yeah.
So they had no network of buyback centers for the entire state. So now they're talking about a reverse vending machine at any store that sells, like in Albertsons or Vons. It'll be reverse vending machine where you can put your bottles, your aluminums, your plastic back into a vending machine. It reads the barcode and it gives you a receipt to go use as a credit toward your purchase
Oh, wow.
at Vons or Alberts, like they do back east in New York and Massachusetts and other bottle bill laws, state laws. But they're just in flux now. They're not sure what they're gonna do with that. I think she wants to do the reverse vending machine, but it's not in place yet. But if that happens, then, the buyback centers that were in place with Replanted would be, no longer needed. So you don't want to compete with that.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough to go around for it, unfortunately. But I think they're gonna figure that out between now and hopefully the end of the year. This is what the new director said she wanted to do.
Okay.
Yeah, previously North County Recycling said they didn't want to operate this type of facility.
We had opened one up for, Brad had at one point, he had done one for a few months, then he turned around and just said. But I mean, I've done them for other facilities. I'm pretty well aware of how they run, how they operate. There's probably some discussions to be had on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when you do something like that, you don't say we're doing this for our Templeton contract only, because
Yeah.
anyone can come from anywhere and just bring the stuff in, and it just becomes a labor of, just a lot of labor.
But
I
yeah,
think several years ago, there was like, some initial outreach to Trader Joe's.
Yeah, we did that
They
too.
were-
We did a
yeah,
study.
right.
We did a
And it
study.
was not feasible there either, so, yeah.
There is some part of the legislation that if you go back to those recycle laws where some of the places that sell them to certain capacities have to take a certain amount of it back.
Right.
Yeah, the big kick now in Sacramento is PROS, which is Producers Responsibility Organization, which is an acronym for saying, like tires or TVs, you buy a TV from Best Buy, they gotta also take your old one back. You buy a tire from Giant Big Tire or whatever, they can't sell a tire without taking it back. So this pro thing, which is just passed in Canada to be countrywide in Canada, is getting some traction in some of the northwest states in the country, and also California going, maybe we go back to pro, which, the recycling industry said, wait a second, we've built hundreds of MRFs in California and the West Coast that handle blue barrel stuff. Now you want to take all that aluminum and PET rich stuff out of it and put it back into a program to recover it from the actual folks who are selling, like batteries and tires. And it has some opposition against it. And I think California is going to end up going like Portland and Oregon and Washington, saying we're thinking pro is the right way to go, because it works for batteries, it works for tires, it works for
Take it
electronics.
back.
But you're taking it down to a much more granular item versus TV. I haven't bought it. I've been here three years. I haven't bought a TV, but I buy Coke and I buy alcohol and beer and plastic and aluminum cans. So you get that granular, it becomes a little bit more of a challenging issue versus put it in a blue bin and put it at your curb. So there's big debates going on and a lot of money behind both of the different sides. But I mean, that is in flux too with the new Cal Recycle direction. I think Newsom's governor is still thinking about what is the right way to do it, but it'll be a
California is
challenge.
gonna be always leading.
Oh, sure.
So that's why we always have to be like, I think, a step ahead. But yeah, I mean, whatever you guys can do, take a look and figure out, and we have some time, so we have some time. And
Okay, so your expectation that maybe after a few months, we can report back
Yeah.
to you on this concept.
Exactly.
And we'd have some dollars and cents that are,
Yes. And then you guys could take a look and just see how you could run the program.
It'll give us some time to kind of talk around to some.
Exactly. So yeah, it doesn't have to be done today, so
Sure.
Put Melissa
bring in those kids. All right, and that was our last item, and that's it. Okay, we'll go ahead and call it, adjourn the meeting then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.